Hey everybody, Economic Ninja here. I got some trucking news. I have freight news, and it is important. As the world is trying to get us into this whole electric thing, it is going to cause big problems in the freight industry. And I think it doesn't matter if you're in the freight industry or not. Everyone should be watching this because we're going to start to see supply chain snarls over the next few years. Companies go bankrupt because they simply cannot afford buying new vehicles. And all of these added regulations that are taxing all these companies, but also on top of that, when they get taxed, when they get added fees, they pass that on to the consumer, okay? So here we go. This is out of ttnews.com. It's entitled, "The EU and US Agree on Heavy Truck Charging Standard." Now let me just stop right there and say this is coming from an insider of mine in the auto industry, and he said, and I quote, "We should all be concerned about this." And to say that he is in a high position in the auto industry is an understatement. So check this out. It says Accord centers on universal application for megawatt systems. It says to further quest to electrify trucking, the US government and European Union have agreed that when a megawatt charging standard is developed for heavy trucks, it must be universal. Now that's smart, you got to admit, but it just shows that they are completing this deal. They are making this happen. It says a common international standard on megawatt charging systems to recharge electric heavy-duty vehicles was among key decisions made May 31st during the fourth ministerial meeting of the EU and the US Trade and Technology Council in Luna, Sweden. And isn't it funny? It's great that they're working on this to make an international standard. But do you remember when it was, Congress had to get involved when all these charging companies or these iPhone company and all these other cell phone manufacturers kept changing their wires or connections every other phone, it seemed like. And it was like you could never keep up. You always had to buy this special cord and all that kind of stuff until they said, hey, we're going to make a standard. It absolutely drove me nuts. But again, this is making it to where international companies that are making these electric charging stations, the charging systems for the trucks, are going to have this one standard. Now, the question is, are Russia, China, India, and the BRICS nations going to follow suit with this? Or is it going to be essentially the West versus the East? Because it seems like that with everything else that's going on right now. It said this standard will facilitate transatlantic trade and investment by reducing the manufacturing and deployment costs, the council stated. A White House statement on May 31st said the TTC will work to maximize clean energy development, accelerate the transition to a net zero emission economy no later than 2050, increase the security of supply chains for clean energy technology, and sustain and create well-paying jobs for the workers in the transatlantic economy by sharing information. Look, you could like this or hate it, right? But the fact of the matter is, these governments are ramrodding this through. So you're always needing to look for the ways to make money from this, okay? And people that are invested in certain technologies in the early stages make the most gains, all right? What's funny is most of the people around the world, they only get involved when they see all these other people making money and it's right at the top. It's like a real estate cycle or a stock cycle. So you need to start identifying, using these news stories and go, okay, how is there money to be made? You know, what kind of companies are behind this, especially those ones that are a part of these groups? The TTC meeting was co-chaired by Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, Commerce Secretary Gina Raimondo, and U.S. Trade Representative Catherine Tai, along with European Commission executives and vice presidents. The TTC noticed that it is placing decarbonization efforts at the heart of the trade policy to accelerate the transition toward a net zero economy. Now, let me stop there because all of this stuff is very serious and very scary, right? As these governments are changing the way we live right now rapidly, they're forcing these companies, a lot of them are going to go into bankruptcy. They're going to have to close their doors. They simply cannot pass on enough of the added costs for new semi-trucks that are battery powered and all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you that I believe there is a collapse coming, a crash, and that is going to set all of these plans back a while. Okay, so I want to say that very clearly. I believe that this economic collapse that is actually being built up by them is going to cause a delay in all of this. Quite frankly, I believe it'll be at least a 5-year delay, if not more, because when the economy goes kaput, there's nobody going to be able to afford a semi-truck that's ran on batteries, okay? It just doesn't make sense. And when the economy crashes, the governments around the world can't tax the crap out of their citizens because they're not making any money to tax. So I believe that this is going to, it's going to be pushed back. Now, with that being said, when I talk about finding opportunities, you start to research them now. and then you wait for pullbacks in the economy for great deals. Then the other thing, the other problem you're going to have is you're going to be looking at companies that can they weather a financial storm? How much cash do they have on their books? What kind of debts how much money do they owe? Things like that. You've got to look at what these companies have in their war chest to be able to deal with a downturn, but then also be able to spearhead new technologies, okay? So I want people to understand that. So it's a really interesting time in life where we have all this massive technology hitting the markets, artificial intelligence, battery power, all this stuff, and you're looking, okay, but I know there's gonna be a crash. So that means there's gonna be better deals out there, all right? Now, the TTC also noted that having a uniform megawatt charging system standard for electric heavy-duty vehicles is critical. We will continue to work together to develop a transatlantic test procedure for high-power charging up to MCS levels, assuring interoperability and system charge performance, TTC stated. These efforts will ensure that stakeholders will benefit from fully compatible technical specifications, reducing manufacturing and deployment costs, and thus facilitating transatlantic cooperation for electromobility to become mainstream. Now, another thing I want to point out is the reason why the EU and America is working so tightly together in this is because they know that China and Russia and India are walking away from the world, from their system, from their global dominated system. And they're not going to play well together, especially if a war breaks out between China and Taiwan. So they need this cooperation, both the Americans and, America, Canada, and the EU. Because without it, if they lose China and their manufacturing base and they don't have it set up now and have their ducks in a row and everybody talking together and working well together, they're going to find themselves in a world of hurt along with our supply chain. So this is the things that I wanted to share with you. I think it's very important. I just want to share this story with you because they are moving in that direction. They are continually working to that total green, all battery dominated stuff. It's not going to happen when they say it's going to happen, though. It's going to take a lot longer than you think. But this is the time to start identifying opportunities, be saving money, get your war chest ready, and when the time is to strike is when everybody's screaming and running and saying, oh my gosh, it's over, it's done. That's when you buy assets for pennies on the dollar. All right, guys, with that being said, I thank you for watching. The Economic Ninja is out.